Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. And Patrick, the trade deadline has come and gone. The Cubs have made multiple moves. They have improved their team. I think it's hard to argue against that. What many fans, I don't want to say like judging by the reaction I got, it's not all fans, but it's many fans, many pundits, uh, people all around the game feel like there was a missed opportunity here, that they didn't do what they needed to have this be a successful deadline. I think after what we're recording this about 5 hours after the deadline is hit. I think after thinking about it, seeing everything that's happened, I can understand the frustration, but I can also understand where Jed Hoyer is coming from. Like what I think ultimately the Cubs didn't get a no doubt playoff starter. I'm not sure if there was one that could have been pried for a reasonable cost, but it just feels disappointing when this team is this good with some obvious needs and the biggest need wasn't addressed.
Yeah, and Jed Hoyer's point was understood that, no other team made the trade for, he wouldn't say by name, but the marquee controllable starters, Mackenzie Gore, Joe Ryan. There's kind of split opinions on Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera, but they both, fall under that umbrella as well. And, I think I like every move the Cubs actually followed through on. I think you're nodding your head. I think you agree as well. Just to me, I have a hard time looking at what the Cubs gave up and thinking like their actions met the moment. What I'm talking about is trading just kind of a bunch of teenagers / mid-round picks, almost all of them in the lower levels, couple in the middle levels of your farm system. I just thought they clung a little too tightly to that. I get it. Acquiring Mackenzie Gore would have been really difficult. Maybe the prices were so unreasonable. I was just honestly surprised that they didn't get that Charlie Morton or someone like that. Like, we were all in that media workroom on the second floor of the Wrigley office tower as it crept towards 5 o'clock local time, even afterwards, thinking something else was going to trickle out. Zach Gallen, just someone like that. I thought that was going to be there, and I'm really surprised it didn't come through.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There was a feeling of surprise. I think listening to Jed talk, I listened to multiple others beyond him speaking to us in the media room there. I heard him on the radio. I heard him on Marquee. A point he made. He said there were rentals available, and then there were like the guys that like the Joe Ryan, the Edward Cabrera, the Mackenzie Gore. That's 2.5, 3.5 years of control. There was no 1.5 year of control guy, which maybe that's where they fit best for value wise. If you're going to trade Joe Ryan, if you're going to trade Mackenzie Gore, the ask probably starts with Cade Horton or Matt Shaw, maybe both. That if that's where they're not budging from giving up one of those guys, I get it. If you're not budging from giving up Owen Casey or Jefferson Rojas or Kevin Alcantara, that's where I'd have some issues. I'm not sure if that was the case. They probably weren't willing to give those guys up for a rental. And that's where it's like this weird in between. There wasn't that 1.5 year guy, and they don't have that double A guy, A+ guy that's not in the top 100, but not not also like this guy that has tremendous upside that could be in the top 100 next year. Like, that's what you want. You want one of those guys to give up for a rental, maybe, where you're like, yeah, we'll take the risk. This guy could be a top 100 guy next year. The guys that are like 17 and could be a top 100 guy in 5 years if everything clicks, they don't want that for the rental, for the top tier rental. So it was just a weird market, I think, for Jed Hoyer. I think he made some valid points. I also just think I think you're right when, and I think fans that are frustrated are right in the sense like I don't know what could have been done, right? We're not sitting in those rooms and hearing every deal, but maybe when you see the Astros behaving the way they do, when you see the Padres behaving like they do, was Dylan Cease available, and what kind of price? That's probably where you do willingly give up the top 100 prospect for a rental. And I don't think that's how they look at it. I think sometimes there's a guy like that where you say, you know what, screw it, we're giving him up for the rental because this guy's just that good and changes the dynamic of our team. Um, eh, I think for me, what I look at is you have all these prospects. What are you going to do with them? You can't play them all. I think some of them can be useful bench pieces this year. Maybe some of them earn starting time over the course of the next 2 months. But then what? Like, maybe one guy replaces Kyle Tucker, but what about the others? Where's the playing time for Moises Ballesteros, for Owen Casey, for Kevin Alcantara, for Jonathan Long? Where I don't know. I don't know where you play all these guys. And when you have these prospects at AAA, yeah, it's great, but eventually they need to be traded, and they need to be traded at the right time, and you need to trade the right ones, and that's on them to figure that out. I think we'll discuss that in the winter more than now, but it's just something that I was thinking about while trying to talk all this out and to think all this through over the past 5 hours.
Look, you mentioned Kyle Tucker. He's what, like 50 something games away from reaching free agency. I forget the exact number, something in that range. What, 2 months, maybe 2 months and a playoff run.
Yeah.
Pete Crow Armstrong, like, I think he's going to have a real nice long career in the big leagues. Is he going to play at an MVP level every year the rest of his life? I mean, probably not. You have a group that has overcome adversity in the form of, Justin Steele's injury. You've gotten, great performance out of Matthew Boyd. The Brewers are pushing you and probably will until the last game of the season at a time when the St. Louis Cardinals are just receding, your historic rival. I just thought the circumstances and the club's play merited more. And, I'm not even doing the whole like front office versus clubhouse, battle, because Craig Counsell is an extension of that front office. I mean, Jed Hoyer has been in the organization the entire time. All of these guys have come into the organization, whether he was the GM or the president of baseball operations. So it's not like he's some new guy who doesn't believe in this group. This is his handpicked team. And I would love to like hear, some of these discussions of like where they draw the line on prospect value, because it just felt like they held him too tightly this summer. That it just could have been just one more move out there, and I think it's a different tone as we're talking on social media, maybe even within their own organization.
You know what? When the more I think about this, here's something that I think is most unacceptable. If you're not going to make the moves right now, that like when you clearly need to bolster this roster and there are holes on the roster, you had to do it in the winter. And that's where the money wasn't spent, or that's where the prospect may have been clung to too tightly. And it was a moment where I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt of, okay, evaluate the roster, see where everything is, and then make the moves come July. And they made a bunch of moves. I think they made some good moves. We'll talk about one in just a moment, but I think I think when you don't make those moves, it puts all the more pressure to make some bigger moves in the offseason. I mean, in the trade deadline, they made the one big move. We all thought another big move may come in the winter. It didn't. Uh, and whether it was Bregman backing out on Jesus Luzardo, like there were moves that were left on the table, and you wanted to see them follow through at the trade deadline, and that leads to more disappointment. There's money that wasn't spent. We were told the Cody Bellinger money would be spent. I think you and I kind of realized by the end of the winter, oh wait, that's not being spent at all. And like I think Jed said I wasn't there at spring training at this point, but you were there, and he basically said, you don't keep your powder dry
There
for
is no war chest.
yeah. Is that what it was? You don't sit on the money. So I guess he kind of indicated what was happening, but uh, I don't know. There's a feeling of frustration and something left on the table here. I think it can work out. I think that's important to understand. There's a lot of intriguing additions. No slam dunk addition. Let's talk about one real quickly here. In the DraftKings player spotlight. So Patrick, they added Michael Soroka, Soroka. I guess I'll have to know how to pronounce that by weekends. And we talked about him maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago as a possibility. Soroka I like his peripherals. I like him as a low cost ad, although some would argue that prospect cost of Christian Franklin and Ronnie Cruz is pretty high. I've gotten there may not be a more polarizing prospect in that system than Ronnie Cruz. Some guys are just like don't dig in on him. Others are like, I like this guy a lot. He's a future major league shortstop. So that's what it is when it's a teenager, right? When it's a young dude drafted out of high school. Christian Franklin's probably like a fourth or fifth outfielder on a major league roster on a good one. Soroka strikes guys out. He doesn't walk a ton of guys. He has had a great season in the past. A lot of injuries recently have kept him from really maximizing his value. My concern, I liked the idea a few weeks ago. His last 3 starts dip in like velocity by like 3 miles per hour. That's the concern for me. I also don't know how the Cubs will use him. I think he's going to get some starts, but I also think he's an out getter, and we could see him shifted to the bullpen when Jameson Taillon, Javier Assad, whoever is back. Part of the reason why we're kind of like, why didn't they go get a no doubt starter? Is because it's like, is this guy a no doubt starter? Even not a no doubt playoff starter. Is he even going to make 12 starts for this team down the stretch?
That's exactly what I was thinking, Sahadev, of like, I thought they'd get another guy just because if he's not a slam dunk starter, it just creates a lot more questions. Like, what if there are setbacks in the recovery process for Taillon or Assad? Or what if Cade Horton just kind of hits a wall here? I think, Colin Ray's been really good, about as much as they could have hoped for. Having said all that, this is why his name popped up on one of our What We're Hearing notebooks even before the All-Star break. I like the fact, Sroka, I think that's how Baseball Reference has the pronunciation, but I don't know, 6'5", 250 pounds, first round pick, guy who's had success at a pretty high level. I mean, you look at his 2019 season, 13-4, 2.68 ERA, 29 starts, like an all-star potential. Obviously, there's been some injury issues, but it does continue this trend of the Cubs love those pitchers from the worst team of all time. Last year's White Sox. I mean, Brad Keller's been awesome for them. Chris Flexen did as well as anyone could have hoped for before he got DFA'd this week. And I do think there's something to this pitcher at this point in his career on this particular team with this manager and coaching staff and with this defense behind him. Like, I get it.
Yeah. I want to talk more just about the idea of getting value, and not always a star player being the most important thing. But let's turn it over to Jeremy for our Northside Territory producer pick.
The dry spell continued last week with the Marlins upending the Brewers. So for this week's Northside Territory producer pick, no parlays today. I'm looking for a no sweat bet. I'm going to take the Twins and the Guardians under 7 runs. The Twins nearly traded their entire club yesterday, except for Joe Ryan, who takes the ball tonight in Cleveland. He might be asked to go the whole distance. I don't know who's coming out of their bullpen. This line is moving, but I got it at minus 106 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm putting $100 down to win 194. Sahadev and Patrick, back to you.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Getting the biggest name doesn't mean you're going to win the World Series at the trade deadline. It's just like the offseason. Sometimes the biggest splash doesn't impact the team as much. I think there's something to be said for these smaller moves. It doesn't have to be the biggest names to improve your team. They have a good manager that knows how to use his pitching staff. Like the Detroit Tigers, I don't love using outliers or randomness of baseball as like, here's an example of something that happened and it went well. It doesn't always work that way. But last year, the Detroit Tigers traded away a starter and did a bunch of bullpen games, and they were the hottest team in baseball post trade deadline. I don't think the Cubs have screwed themselves. I don't think they're a bad team now. I do think that there was I would have liked to have seen them make a bigger move, but Sroka, Kittredge, Rogers, these are guys that are going to help their bullpen, and they are more trustworthy than the guys that they are replacing. I think that helps. I think that helps keep guys, like you said, like Brad Keller, like Daniel Palencia, like Caleb Thielbar. It keeps them fresher for down the stretch. Like, you needed someone like Rogers, so you're not leaning on Thielbar all the time, because Pomerantz was starting to, show his age and show his lack of, he hasn't pitched that much. You want to use him less. Hopefully this helps him too. So I think I don't want to focus only on the negative. I think the team is better. I think you have a manager that knows how to use these pitchers and loves out-getters and will be creative and will get through games. And now you're better set up to get through these bullpen games, to get through these games until Jameson Taillon's ready to make starts, ready to eat 7 innings again, which may not be right away when he comes back. So I do think that they've improved their team, and that they're set up to have a solid second half, solid final 2 months. And I don't know what that means for the postseason, though. But right now, I think they're a better team, and I think it's worthwhile to amplify that instead of just focusing on what they didn't do.
Yeah, I think they can get a little too cute with the outgetter stuff, though. Like, the outgetter stuff worked in Milwaukee when you have Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta. And then on the back end, you have like Josh Hader and Devin Williams. But I get where you're coming from. I get the philosophy. I definitely thought, like, just watching this team over the last month or so, even though the record has not been terrible, there's been so many like sloppy and lopsided losses that you're just like, this pitching staff just needs like new blood, new energy, just, what Jed talked about was just maximizing the entire 26-man roster. And I don't know if they totally accomplished that, but I think they definitely made strides in that direction, particularly on the pitching side. I mean, you look at the score sheet, look at the names on the bullpen, definitely a couple there that you could have circled recently. I mean, Flexen and Presley were two of them. And that's certainly giving Counsell just more options will help. And then they should have some decent depth. We'll see. This is kind of a tangent. I'm a little surprised that maybe they didn't trade some of those change of scenery guys, whether it was Ben Brown or Jordan Wicks.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. Maybe, I don't know, do they shorten up Ben Brown at some point too? I think you almost have to. They've given themselves some flexibility here, as well as some depth, and those are like the two essential concepts to like what the Cubs do. There are certain teams, you mentioned them. The Padres chase stars; they're constantly churning, prospects for established major league talent. The Astros take these big swings with an owner, who gets involved and likes chasing those stars. The Cubs are kind of a boring Midwest team that love depth and flexibility and that are constantly worried about things that could go wrong. And that's not a bad way to look at it. I mean, it's pretty realistic, and we'll see kind of what plays over the next 2+ months.
Yeah, like you said, there were just some pitching outings that some outings that you had to make changes. That Brewer series, I think, really amplified some of these issues. Chris Flexen was great for a long stretch there. 2 earned runs allowed for like his first 15, I think, outings, and then his last 5, he gave up 13 earned runs. He gave up 6 homers, 8 ERA. It was rough, and he, Ryan Sandberg passed away, and it kind of put the Brewers series to the side, and understandably so. But I was starting to write about, this. They have to upgrade this pitching staff. Chris Flexen, you can't keep him around if you're a playoff team. And then they DFA'd him the next day. Ryan Presley, look, I understand the bet there. I understand making that move. I talked about money before. Hey, that was a money move, right? They were adding some money there. They were willing to take it on, betting on a veteran who has a ton of postseason success. It didn't work out here. And both these guys, Flexen and Presley, like, you got to give them props for the work they put in. Flexen, I think, did a great job for a period of time and probably won them some games by keeping them in games and allowing that offense to shine. Presley, it was almost to the point where you could like see it on his face every single time he went out there recently. It seemed like he was giving up, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 home runs in his last 5 outings. And it seemed like every single time he was like, it like ate at him. Like, I just gave up another run. He was so desperate to get back to that high leverage spot and like get back to being a trusted pitcher in that bullpen. And it wasn't happening. And he had some nice runs. Yeah. Obviously had that historically bad outing. In the end, it just didn't work out. I mean, a 4.35 ERA isn't the worst thing ever, but it's also, I think, watching him go through the day-to-day, it was like, okay, yeah, this isn't working. 15.4% strikeout rate, 9.3% walk rate. Not going to get it done.
No, not sustainable. Flexen as well. Not a guy with like huge swing and miss stuff. It's hard to survive in the big leagues that way. And yeah, I think getting different looks, additional experience in the bullpen, that effect you're talking about, Sahadev, of like other relievers are better when, certain guys carry the load, or, you can put them in better matchups. Like, I think of what Council talks about, how that bullpen is a team within a team, that what one pitcher does oftentimes affects another, as you're trying to find different segments of the lineup to work against, to keep guys healthy over a longer period of time. Like, all those things feed into each other. It also helps to have a frontline starter, like you say, who will throw 7 innings every time out. But those guys are increasingly rare and even harder to acquire.
Quickly, just like Andrew Kittredge, really good pitcher this year. His peripherals are like kind of better than Caleb Thielbar's. I know he's a righty, so it's different, but they're really good peripherals. There's like 2 relievers, 3 relievers with better strikeout. No, there's 2 relievers with better strikeout rate than Andrew Kittredge on this staff. It's Pomerantz and Palencia. So I like that ad. I know he's not a big name, but that's a nice ad. Rogers is another. You needed another lefty. You had to add another lefty, and it's a nice addition. Let's take a break and talk about the one bat that they added.
Kratz, if I'm new to card collecting and I'm looking for the safest, most trusted way in the game to acquire cards, or to buy a card but not go through a ton of work where I'm going to the shows, I'm going online doing auctions, I want it all in one place, I'm going to
Arena Club. It's all in one place. You know you're getting a good price whether you're buying it or you're selling cards. If you're new to it, you don't want all the other crappy cards. You can get the ones that you want. You can start your collection. And if you get them on Arena Club, your collection will look a boss.
That's right. And may I mention, they also have Pokemon cards in those slab packs that we talk about every week. You can rip a pack for as low as $25 and hit on a card that's worth tens of thousands of dollars, because every pack has grails that are at least 20x the price of the pack. So get involved at arenaclub.com/foul. Use the code FOUL to get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase.
Of all the moves they made, I think I like the Willie Castro one the most.
Agreed.
Honestly, I think it has a chance to be like a really impactful move. This is a team that hasn't had of late the best success against lefties. Willie Castro crushes lefties. He can play all over. The Ian Happ's shin, I know he homered in the last game against the Brewers on a pinch hit. I know, he's likely going to be out there every day, but Willie Castro can play some left field. Matt Shaw, bad matchup, put Willie Castro at third base. Dansby Swanson needs a break. Nico Horner needs a break. Pico Armstrong gets banged up. Anything like that. This guy can play wherever. And I think he's a pretty good bat, especially with the lefty on the mound. He's a really good bat. He's an average bat probably with a righty on the mound. I just really like the addition. I think it's the type of move that Eugenio Suarez gets a ton of ink. Carlos Correa is going to get the headlines. I wouldn't rule out Willie Castro being the most, as far as the final 2 months of the season, being one of the best bats moved. And one of the most impactful players. I think this offense needed something. The bench needed something. You needed to upgrade in some way, whether it was the bench or the lineup. I think this does both, because you can play him every day all over the place, and you can also that just improves the bench and the depth.
Yeah, I still think Suarez is probably going to be more impactful, but I agree with everything else.
I
got you. For this team, though, Castro fits extremely well. I mean, 28 years old, a recent All-Star. According to our buddy Dan Hayes, or at least I'm assuming he wrote this part of one of our many pre-writes on our MLB desk. Castro's great clubhouse dude as well. You see it if he's willing to play everywhere. Those guys usually have that sort of attitude and aptitude. But again, someone who's in a really nice point in his career. And, I think circling back to kind of where this started, like with prospects, it is so hard to become an everyday player in the major leagues. Just to stay healthy enough to keep earning those opportunities, to reach free agency, to get into your mid-20s and still be playing in the majors. Like, those guys are rare, and that's why the ones who do it get paid a ton of money. And, Castro's not a huge name. He's a different form of an everyday type player, but, we've said it before, this has been a remarkably healthy group of position players. And obviously no one's wishing for injuries or, but they happen all the time. And just, I don't know, the law of averages makes you think like something else is going to happen here. And I mean, Ian Happ looked good enough, said he felt good enough. But just the way this sport works, like all it takes is a foul ball, a hit by pitch, running into a wall, a collision in the outfield, whatever it is, like that is going to happen. And to have a guy, like you say, who can spell Nico, who could spell Dansby, PCA, whatever you want to do, like same way certain bullpen guys are, what Joe Madden would call force multipliers. Like this guy, Willie Castro, can help other guys stay fresh. If you want to play through the end of October, you're going to need it, to get through the dog days of August and to give you some matchup advantages in September. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, I instantly, I think this was one of the names we identified decently early on as well. And I always thought like this, Suarez is going to be hard to pry away because there's going to be so much competition for him. But this seemed more realistic. It was all about did the Twins fall out of it? And wow, did the Twins they didn't go, that wasn't a half measure what they did. I was kind of shocked at how aggressive they were. It was almost like, where's the Joe Ryan trade? Because they moved everyone else. It was a little jarring to see all those moves. I thought that, most teams just don't do that. Just don't see that. Not especially when not every single one of them was a rental. But yes, this was a nice addition for them. I think when we talk about undervalued or overlooked moves, 2 months from now, we may say like, wow, did that save the Cubs season in some way because player X was hurt for a month or just was slumping and they needed someone to go in there. There's a lot of little things that this guy can help with, and I think he makes a real difference for this group. Sorry, go on.
No, I think that's a good call too. Of like the 2 months, you never know, right? Like sometimes it's Nick Castellanos, and sometimes Jeimer Candelario gets hurt. I mean, you're just kind of stuck for basically half the time you have the guy, and so I think with Castro, there's a lot of potential and upside there for him to help it in different ways and maybe even scenarios we're not even envisioning right now.
Yeah, and one final point on the offense. I think we're going to see these young guys come up. At least Ballesteros is already up. I wonder if we're going to see Casey at some point soon. I don't know how you play them regularly, really, if everybody's healthy, but maybe it's Jesse Rogers kind of asked the question to Jed. I think it's a fair one. Is it just don't overthink this best 26, player development maybe goes out the window for a couple months here. And you find ways, you play straight matchups. You just play the best guys every day, pinch hit aggressively, do all these different things. And then when it's 28 man in a month from now, you can be even more aggressive with it. I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see some aggressive moves. Miguel Amaya is going to come back. Who gets DFA'd? Is that John Birdie? Now that Willie Castro is here, does John Birdie really have a role on this roster? There's a lot of moves coming. This team is deeper and better. I understand there's plenty of disappointment and it's valid. I'm very curious to see how this team plays down the stretch because that they are a better team and they've been the second best record or tied for the second best record right now in baseball. So there could be hand wringing, but also we got to keep perspective here about how good this team actually is. So it should be a fun final 2 months if we can put the disappointment of the trade deadline behind us and see what they can do, because they're going to make noise. It's not like they pack it in now because they didn't get Mackenzie Gore or Joe Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, like if Joe Ryan or Mackenzie Gore was walking down the street, would you even notice them? You know what I mean? like we're not talking about.
I think the ladies like Joe
Sabathia.
Ryan, Patrick. The ladies like Joe Ryan. He's a good looking man.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I was not talking about anyone's
well, not just the ladies,
as much as yeah. Just the like they were kind of the internet name. They're very good pitchers, no doubt. You'd want them on your team, but I don't know if this is passing on Justin Verlander or you would have gotten, CC Sabathia, what he did for the Brewers. The pitching game, the prominence of starters have certainly diminished somewhat. So, and plus now we have trade rumors for these guys in the offseason, right?
I was about to say, I don't think we're done hearing trade rumors.
Maybe the Nationals, where they stick with the interim guy or not. There's a baseline there. There's still, a whole set of, Marlins conversations to revisit. That's, endless fodder.
Yeah, we'll talk more trade rumors in 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months whenever the GM meetings start up again. All right, Patrick, I think we're good there. Trade deadline has come and gone. Yeah, it was hectic. It may not have been exactly what you wanted. This is a better team. I'm curious to see how it all plays out. They're going to play a much depleted Baltimore Orioles team this weekend. They need to get going. They need to start looking better. Maybe there'll be a little jolt in that clubhouse and they'll be ready to go for the final 2 months of the season. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks, everyone.